The nation's capital is panicked by a wave of ruthless murders, and the world is stunned to discover one of the killers is a teenager. Number one on our list of shocking crimes, Lee Boyd Malvo and the DC sniper murders. On October 3rd, 2002, a little more than a year after the 9/11 terrorism attacks, 4 people were gunned down by sniper bullets over a 2-hour period in suburban Maryland.
Everything happened so quick. Boom, boom, boom.
The nation feared terrorists were behind the shootings. That night, victim number 5 was killed by a sniper in the District of Columbia. The following day, in a Virginia parking lot, a woman was wounded by yet another long-range bullet.
People were dropping like flies. Innocent people just going about their business.
For 3 weeks, the Washington, D.C. area was under siege.
You couldn't go pump gas. You couldn't go to the grocery store.
I've ordered the full resources of the federal government to help local law enforcement officials in their efforts to capture this person.
After 21 days and 10 deaths, on October 24th, a trucker spotted a car in a Maryland highway rest stop. The blue 1990 Chevrolet Caprice matched a description made public a few hours earlier. At approximately 3 a.m., a SWAT team caught the killer sleeping inside the car. The snipers were identified as 41-year-old John Muhammad and 17-year-old Lee Boyd Malvo.
When they began to show Lee on TV, my children were saying, "Mommy, that's our best friend. You have to help him. If it wasn't for Daddy, then he wouldn't be where he is."
Lee Malvo spent most of his early years without a family or a real home. Lee was just 5 when his parents separated. 4 years later, his mother, Una James, left Lee in their native Jamaica while she worked on nearby islands.
By the time he was like about 14, he had had 15 different moves, different places, different people.
At 15, Lee finally reunited with his mother on the Caribbean island of Antigua. One of Malvo's neighbors was American-born John Muhammad, a single father raising a son and 2 daughters. Malvo was instantly drawn to the 39-year-old Muhammad.
He was great with children. He was like a Pied Piper. Lee latched onto him as dad.
A year later, Lee moved to Florida to live with his mother, while Muhammad took his own family far away.
He went to Bellingham, Washington without children and lived in a mission, a shelter.
Officials in Bellingham discovered John Muhammad did not have legal custody of his 3 kids. In September 2001, the children were reunited with Muhammad's ex-wife Mildred, who was living in Maryland just outside of Washington, D.C. John became obsessed with getting his children back. He developed a plan, and that plan included Lee Malvo.
John called him and informed him that the children had been taken away.
Lee hopped a bus from Florida to Washington State.
And that's when the gun training started.
Muhammad, an Army veteran who served in the Gulf War, began teaching Malvo to be a soldier.
He decides to turn this kid into a killing machine.
On February 16, 2002, John Muhammad gave Lee Malvo a test. Armed with a handgun, the 16-year-old was sent to the home of a woman who aided Mildred Muhammad during the custody battle.
He told Lee that he's to knock on the door, and when she opens the door, he's to just say, "This is for you."
The intended target was not home. Instead, the woman's niece, Kenya Cook, answered the door.
And then she was shot in the face.
The Kenya Cook murder was the first murder, but it was also the symbolic death of Lee Boyd Malvo.
From late February until October, Muhammad and Malvo roamed the country, allegedly committing violent crimes.
There were a series of robberies, killings.
Muhammad told Lee they were soldiers in a war for social justice, to overturn an evil system. But Muhammad's real plan was personal.
He came over to kill me so that he could regain custody of the children. Unfortunately, he included other people to create a diversion, to hide my murder in a random shooting.
Muhammad's diversion terrorized the nation's capital for 3 weeks and cost 10 innocent people their lives. Malvo and Muhammad were tried separately for their crimes. Between 2004 and 2006, Malvo was found guilty of 8 counts of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole for each count.
He's 18 and contemplating living the rest of his natural life in a penitentiary cell.
Muhammad was also found guilty of first-degree murder. He received a death sentence. Behind bars and away from John Muhammad, Lee Malvo began to change. Social worker Carmita Alvarez Lindo spent more than 200 hours with Malvo in prison.
About 2004, late 2004, it dawned on him what he had done. He is so full of remorse. He cries for the victims.
On November 10th, 2009, John Muhammad was executed by lethal injection in Virginia.
You know what Lee was getting from Muhammad and what satisfied him? Crackers and water and raisins. That was it. He didn't want anything else. He just wanted love and acceptance.
Lee Malvo remains in a Virginia prison. Some were monsters. Some were good kids gone bad. They all found out they weren't too young to kill.
Only a handful of minutes have irrevocably changed not only my life, but everyone else involved.